Houston sellers are counting on one thing, that you don't know what you're doing. If this is your first home, that's not an insult, it's just the reality. And overpaying is easier than you think. Not because you skip the research. Most buyers are doing plenty of research. The problem is that they're looking at the wrong things. A home can seem affordable online, then make a lot less sense once you factor in taxes, insurance, and HOA fees. How's the commute? Is the resale demand in that area actually moving? Houston has more options than it did during the peak of the market. Recent HAR data showed active listings are up year over year, and homes were spending around 60 days on the market. That gives buyers more room to think, but it also gives them more ways to make the wrong call. Some people chase neighborhoods that already priced them out. Others go further out for more space, then realize the commute or resale picture doesn't fit the lifestyle they actually want. The opportunity is there. It just always isn't sitting where everyone is searching. So today, I'm breaking down 5 Houston areas first-time buyers should be studying, what each one offers, what the trade-offs look like, and which type of buyer each area actually makes sense for. Because the goal isn't just buying your first house. The goal is to buy one without putting yourself in a bad position later. Real quick, before we get into it, I'm Thomas Priddy. I'm a lifelong Houstonian and Cypress resident. I help buyers, sellers, and relocators make smarter real estate decisions in Greater Houston and Cypress. If you're already trying to figure out where to buy, all you gotta do is text me. My information is in the description. And every week, I'm helping people work through this exact decision. Which area fits your budget? Which location makes sense for your commute? Which home looks good online, but may not hold up as well long-term? No pressure at all. I'm just a text away, and we can have a real conversation about what makes sense for your situation. Before we go area by area, I want to reframe the question that most buyers are asking, which is, what's the best neighborhood in Houston? That sounds like the real question, but it's not. The better question is, which area actually fits the way I need this home to work? Because a buyer commuting to the energy corridor shouldn't evaluate Houston the same way someone working from home does. Someone trying to maximize appreciation may make a different decision than a buyer who prefers stability. And a person who cares most about space will usually look at a different part of the city than someone prioritizing access. That's why best can get people in trouble. Cheap in the wrong area can cost you. And a great location without a clear strategy can be just as expensive. The right first home needs to make sense for your budget today in your next 5 to 7 years. That means we're not only looking at affordability, we also have to consider resale demand, commute, condition, and whether the area has enough long-term appeal to support your decision. Your first home isn't just a place to live. In Houston, it's a financial decision with a lot of moving parts. The first area, Spring Branch. If I were prioritizing location, access, and long-term positioning, I would spend serious time studying this part of Houston. Spring Branch gives you something that it's hard to recreate later: access. You're near major routes like I-10, Beltway 8, and 610, which can put the energy corridor, the Galleria, Memorial, and downtown within reach depending on the exact pocket. That kind of location matters. Even with hybrid work, commute still influences buyer demand. People may not drive into an office 5 days a week anymore, but they still care about how easily they can get around the city. The closer in areas with real access tend to hold attention because the land itself is valuable. You can renovate a house. You can't pick it up and move it closer to everything. And that's the appeal of Spring Branch. Now the trade-off of that is real. You're not getting a perfect turnkey suburb here. The inventory can be mixed. One street may have older homes with renovation potential. Another pocket may have townhomes, newer construction, or smaller lots. The price per square foot can be higher than what you would find further out. And a first-time buyer needs to understand what they're actually buying. Spring Branch isn't always the biggest house for the money. It's often a positioning play that can be a smart move if you understand the trade-off. So the question becomes, do you want more space right now, or do you want closer in access that may help the home stay attractive to future buyers? And for the right buyer, Spring Branch makes a lot of sense. For someone who wants a larger, newer home with more room to spread out, this may feel too tight or too expensive. That's why strategy matters before you start falling in love with listings. Next, I would look at the areas around the heights. Not necessarily the heights itself, the outskirts, and that distinction matters. The heights has become expensive enough that many first-time buyers feel priced out before they even get serious. The demand that made the Heights popular doesn't stop at a single street or one boundary. When buyers can't get into the core area, they often start looking at what's nearby. That's where the opportunity can show up. Sometimes the smarter move isn't buying directly in the hot neighborhood. The better play may be buying near the demand and letting the growth continue around you. And that can work well when you choose carefully. But it can also backfire if you treat every street nearby like it's the same opportunity. The Heights outskirts aren't just a buy anything close strategy. This is a block by block decision. One property may benefit from nearby development, a strong buyer demand, and improving surroundings. Another house a few streets away may not have the same upside at all. And that's the part that online searches miss. Because a map can make two homes look similar, but the market may see them completely differently. And for first-time buyers, this area can be interesting because it gives access to an inner loop lifestyle without paying the full Heights price. You may still face older housing stock, tight lots, renovation needs, or higher cost per square foot. But those trade-offs aren't automatically bad. They just need to be understood before you buy. The buyer who does well here wants upside and is willing to be selective. The buyer who wants certainty, space, and newer finishes may feel frustrated. But done right, the outskirts around the Heights can be a strong first home move. Done casually, it can become an expensive lesson. The third area, East End and Eastwood. This one has some of the most interesting upside in Houston, but it also has more room for error than a lot of buyers expect. In the attraction, it's easy to understand. You're close to downtown. There's a strong cultural identity. Redevelopment has been happening in different pockets. Buyers who want access without paying the highest inner loop prices often start paying attention here. That demand hasn't disappeared. When the right home is priced correctly in the right pocket, buyers still notice. The mistake is assuming the whole area moves as one simple market, and it doesn't. East End and Eastwood can change dramatically from street to street. One block may have renovated homes, strong curb appeal, and a clear sense of momentum. Nearby, another property might come with foundation concerns, drainage issues, deferred maintenance, or a renovation that looks better in photos than it does in person. And that's where first-time buyers need to be careful, because the cheapest house near downtown isn't automatically the best opportunity. Sometimes it's cheap for a reason. Other times, it's exactly the kind of property that can make sense with the right numbers, inspections, and long-term plan. The difference is context. If you want upside, East End and Eastwood deserve a look. If you want predictability, this area may feel harder to read. And neither answer is wrong. You just need to know which kind of risk you're comfortable taking on. The buyers who win here aren't casually browsing and hoping they pick the right street. They're looking at condition, flood history, drainage, nearby sales, renovation quality, and how future buyers are likely to view the exact pocket. The upside is real, but certainty isn't guaranteed, and that's the trade-off. Now let's move to Katy. Katy's a different kind of decision. It isn't usually the highest upside play on the list, but the appeal is consistency. In a market where many buyers feel uncertain, consistency has value. Katy continues to attract long-term homeowners, relocating buyers, and people who want a more established suburban setup. The infrastructure is more built out than in some newer areas. There are plenty of neighborhoods, retail options, and commute patterns that buyers already understand. And that broad demand base can help Katy stay relevant even when the market slows down. For first-time home buyers, the main question is whether the value still works for that specific home and pocket. Some newer areas have become more expensive. Certain homes may be priced where the deal isn't as compelling as it used to be. Resale inventory can create better entry points, but buyers still need to compare the full payment, tax profile, condition, and commute before deciding. Katy can make a lot of sense for someone who wants a more settled area with established demand. A buyer focused mainly on appreciation or close-in access may find stronger opportunities elsewhere. And that's not a knock on Katy. It just means you need to know why you're choosing it. Don't buy there only because you've heard the name. Buy there because the specific home supports your budget, your commute, your daily life, and your exit strategy when you eventually sell. For the right first-time buyer, Katy can be a stable and practical move. But for someone chasing maximum upside, it may not be the most aggressive play on the list. For a lot of first-time buyers, Cypress is where the search starts to make more sense. Here's what I see happen all of the time. A buyer starts closer to the city. They look at Spring Branch. They check areas around the Heights. East End gets added to the list. and the budget works in some places, but everything just feels too tight. The homes are smaller, the trade-offs feel sharper, and the payment may still be higher than expected once taxes and repairs are included. Then Cypress enters the conversation. Suddenly, the buyer is seeing more space, newer layouts, larger homes, and communities that feel easier to live in day to day. The price per square foot can feel more practical for someone buying their first home. New construction may still be available at entry points that feel competitive compared with closer in areas. That's why Cypress gets attention. Master plan communities like Bridgeland continue to bring in buyer demand. And the Northwest Corridor has some major development stories worth watching. The Houston Texans just announced the Toro District in Bridgeland, including their future headquarters and training complex. Chevron also acquired more than 77 acres in Bridgeland Central, which adds another long-term commercial growth signal to the area. And those projects don't mean every home in Cypress is a smart buy. Development creates attention, but the specific house still has to make sense. You need to look at the tax rate, the commute, and builder quality should be reviewed. The section of the neighborhood can change the resale picture. Mud cost and HOA dues can shift the monthly payment. Cypress gives first-time buyers a strong affordability plus space argument, but it isn't a free pass. If you work downtown every day, the drive can wear on you. A buyer who is remote, hybrid, working near the energy corridor, or spending most of their life on the northwest side may see the trade-off very differently. That's why I like Cypress for the right buyer, because it can solve space, lifestyle, and newer home needs better than almost anywhere else at this price point. You just need to run the full picture before assuming more house means a better decision. Here's what I want you to take away from this. Most first-time home buyers in Houston are asking which neighborhood is the best, and that question will spin you in circles. Every area wins in a different scenario. Spring Branch is a location and access decision. The Heights Outskirts are a growth position. East End and Eastwood offer upside with more risk. Katy is a consistency play. Cypress is an affordability plus space decision. And those aren't the same strategies. A buyer can make a smart move in any of them. The wrong move happens when someone chooses an area because it sounds popular, looks good online, or feels like the place everyone else is talking about. A better question is, what does this home need to do for you over the next 5 to 7 years? That changes the search. It forces you to think beyond the first showing. Will the commute still feel manageable? Can the payment stay comfortable? Does the location have enough buyer demand when you sell? Are you accepting repair risk, flood risk, tax risk, or resale risk without realizing it? Does the home fit your actual life, or only your idea of what your first home should look like? And once you've answered those questions, the neighborhood decision becomes much clearer. Strategy matters much more than a list of names. The right area is the one that fits your numbers, your timeline, your commute, and your long-term plan. If I were buying my first home in Houston today, these are the 5 areas I would study closely. Spring Branch, the areas around the Heights, East End and Eastwood, Katy and Cypress. Each one wins in a different way. Each one carries real trade-offs. The best buyers in this market aren't chasing whatever sounds popular. They're choosing the area that gives them the strongest overall position. And that's the difference between buying a house and actually making a smart move. If you're thinking about buying in Houston and want to work through which of these areas actually fits your situation, all you got to do is text me. My information is in the description and we can put together a real game plan, compare the trade-offs, and figure out what makes sense before you get too far into the search. No pressure, I'm just a text away. And for more Cypress and Houston real estate breakdowns, subscribe to the channel so you can make your next move with more clarity. I'll see you in the next one.